Hello, everyone. Welcome. Those of you who've been with us before, you know the drill. Introduce yourself. Let us know in the chat where you're calling from. Do want to remind you or let you know for the first time, if you're new to joining us in the chat, make sure at the bottom in that blue button, you're selecting all panelists and attendees so that everyone joining us can see you. Steve calling from Dallas, Susie from Redding, California. Thanks for being with us, guys.
Yeah, thanks for joining. Daniel from Costa Rica. All right.
Beth James, you're my favorite. Beth, I saw your post about getting ice cream at the end of your little tourist day, and I thought, making Deb proud. Closing a day with ice cream. It's the way to go.
Justin's joining us from Mexico. Hey, Justin. We'd love to hear where the rest of you guys are calling in from. Good to have you for sure.
I'm curious how many people have post, the stay-at-home order gotten out and where you've gotten out to and how your experience has been.
Yeah, I was going to ask, you can share if you'd like. I was going to ask if anybody has kids, family, or roommates joining us as well off camera or away from the computer. Right. So, yeah, ice cream was a good choice for sure.
Still inside in Latin America, yep. I would say we should be here in Nashville, Tennessee. I think people are feeling a little too comfortable or just losing their minds, being stuck at home. And there are a lot of people out.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast, a British podcast about Liverpool FC, and they were taking calls in. And this one guy was asking if he should risk going out and getting a haircut. And I was like, I didn't know that apparently it's like against the law to, so he was worried, like, if it's obvious that I've had a haircut, am I going to get in trouble with the police? And they were like, well, here's how you can, maybe smooth it over. And then they were like, seriously, are people calling the police for their neighbors having the haircut and stuff? But I was like, man, I didn't know it was that tight over there. So
yeah. Hey, Maddie. Good to see you, calling from Ukraine.
Yeah, that's good. David says the worst was last month. It's starting to lighten up a little bit now. Yeah. Yep. We went to a neighboring county to get ice cream last night so we could go inside rather than staying in Davidson County in Nashville. So
yeah, we were at Jenny's last night, and it was like one customer at a time.
Yeah.
So like everyone's waiting outside, so you could go in, and then you couldn't like go around at all. It was like just this one area, So I was like, okay, we can still do things, but yeah, I was very, very heavily limited, which was good.
Yeah. Phil in the Philippines, still under quarantine. Yeah. Hope you guys are
safe.
Hi,
Becky.
There,
I don't know if Becky's with you, but hi, Becky, as well.
All right. I've got 2 minutes past the hour, so she's asleep. I've got 2 minutes past the hour. We've got some content we want to share with you guys, and we'd love to leave time for questions at the end. So I'm thinking we're going to go ahead and maybe jump into it. Okay. If you haven't already, we'd love for you to throw in the chat where you're from, where you're calling from, and just your name. It's always nice to see new faces, but also clients and people that we've met before. So feel free to go ahead and do that. So I just want to welcome everyone. My name is Kiley Hawkins. I'm the CEO here at Tailored Fundraising. I've done a couple of webinars, but I'm really excited to be joining you guys today. Presenting with me is our coaching manager, Jenny Karr. And then answering your questions is Jordan Halverson, one of our other co-owners, and he does a lot of our tech stuff. And then Lindsay Riggs, our client relations manager, is running things behind the scenes quite well as always. So good to have all of our team members on. And we're really excited to be with you and are just looking forward to the next hour where we're going to talk about how software can maximize your fundraising efforts. Just to review a little bit of the topics we're going to talk about today, we want to cover just what software can and cannot do. So just kind of setting a context for how to use software effectively. Some different types of fundraising, because we really feel like the kind of fundraising that you're involved in needs to match up with the kind of software tools you use and your expectations for that. So we'll be looking at some different types of fundraising. Some tips for how to use software safely, and then just some popular software tools. We really want to just maybe share some tools that we've heard about from you all or tools that we've experienced. Hopefully you can walk away today with some really good information about how to use software and hopefully one or two new tools for you to use in your fundraising efforts. Before we move further, I want to really thank Epistle. That's a software. They're at epistle.io. They're a software tool for communicating with your partners, and we're going to discuss them later on. But they have generously offered to give a single 1-year subscription to their product for one of you in attendance today. So we are really thankful to Epistle for donating that. And after we're done, Lindsay will make sure that we'll select one of your names at random and then notify the winner by email for that 1-year subscription to their product. Really great software, and appreciate the guys at Epistle for donating that. As always, throughout our webinars, we want to hear from you. So at the bottom of your screen, you should see a chat button, and this is where you can tell us who you are, where you're calling from, and just put any other comments or anything you want to share with us throughout the webinar. But the other button that we want to call your attention to is that Q&A button. So this is where if at any time you have a question about any of the content we're sharing today or just about anything related, please put your question in that Q&A box. So for this webinar, we're going to allow Q&A at the end of the webinar only, but you can submit your questions at any time. So we want to leave a good portion of time at the end to really go over your questions, but we're not going to interject questions throughout the content. We're just going to move through it and then deal with questions at the end. All right. So we want to start by hearing from you. Before this webinar, you should have received a survey. So we asked you the question, what 3 technology platforms do you use to enhance your partnership development efforts? And here is what we found in order of most of the mentions. So the overwhelming majority of responses are talking about Facebook, MailChimp, and email came in second. A product called TNT that we're going to discuss later was mentioned, Zoom, Instagram, MPDX is another fundraising tool. Some of you mentioned WhatsApp, Excel, and then Salesforce. So thank you guys for responding to that. It was really interesting to see what you guys already use or some of the things that you have used in the past in terms of your partnership development efforts.
Yeah, and fun to see, you mentioned a couple that we're going to talk about today, and there are several that we're going to mention that weren't on there. So excited to introduce you to some new ones for you guys to check out. So while we've devoted this entire webinar to talk about software and strongly encourage you to seek out technology platforms to help with your fundraising efforts, we still believe in the power of live fundraising and encourage you to connect with people personally as much as you can. Fundraising is still a relationship business. The vast majority of donors still decide to give for personal reasons. It's heavily influenced, if not motivated, by trust and a close relationship with the person or the organization asking. What that means is even though software can enhance our relationships, you can't completely outsource all of your fundraising to a technology platform. So sorry to disappoint those of you who were hoping you were going to get that magic pill today. Software cannot replace the human connection. You're still an important part of this. So we want to set the right expectation for software. Rather than assuming it's going to solve all of your problems, have a learner mentality. Just like you're encouraged when you're stepping into a new culture, right? Have a learner mentality. What are the features that the software offers? Which ones does it do really well? What other tools does it integrate with that you might want to look into trying out as well? If you try a software and it's not working out, Don't assume it's because it's a bad technology or that you're just no good at fundraising. Learn about what the system can really do for you and the best way to maximize the features that it has. And after you've gotten a handle on that, test it. Try it out for 2 or 3 months. Then circle back and ask yourself, is this working for me? If not, don't hang on to it. A lot of times people will be like, oh well, I've already invested, I'm, already settled in, I've already made the payment, to use this thing, I just need to push through. But if it's not working for you, then you're just wasting money and time. So get rid of it, try something else, and find something that works.
Yeah. All right, so let's talk about some types of fundraising. So when you're looking at fundraising software, the type of fundraising in which you're involved really matters. All right, so let's look at a few of the different types, and then we'll tie in some of the tools along the way. I think we're going to look at 4 types here. So the first type of fundraising is crowd fundraising. And you guys are probably familiar with this or at least heard about it. This is when you have a fundraising campaign on a public platform. The most popular of these platforms are GoFundMe or Indiegogo. And these can work great for raising one-time funds for your launch fund or special projects that come up down the road. They're especially successful if there's an urgent need, like potentially losing a property or even people's lives being in danger or something like that. This kind of crowd fundraising, these platforms can also be good for getting new donors that you may not have connected with before. But some of the main downsides to crowdfunding is that all of these platforms charge a fairly large percentage of what you raise. And if you're a missionary with an organization, then you're probably also dealing with admin fees on top of that. So these can add up pretty quickly. So you just want to pay attention to what kind of fees the platform charges for what you raise. And crowdfunding is also not usually an effective method to gain ongoing support. So if you need monthly partners, then don't try to find them through crowdfunding. It usually bypasses the relationship, and most donors interact with it in sort of a one-time, one-off kind of way. So if you need monthly partners, then recommend some of the other fundraising types and some of the other fundraising platforms.
The second type of fundraising is mass appeals. Now, crowdfunding can fit into mass appeals, but what we found to be more effective are those that are sent to a personal email address or a physical mailing address. Mass appeals can be another great way to get large one-time funding quickly, a way to find new donors, and sometimes even monthly partners who maybe haven't given before. And this is true for any appeal, but especially a mass appeal where you aren't making that personal connection. It should be very clear what the impact will be that's tied to the funding you are raising in the moment, okay? Because of this funding, here's what we are able to do. Make sure that is very clear. And you want mass appeals to be a part of your ongoing annual strategy. So at least once a year, you should have a mass appeal. Most commonly, this is year end, but it doesn't have to be. The same strategy that you use for a year end appeal, you can use, 1, 2, 3 other times throughout the year as well. So don't feel like that's your only option. You can spread that out a little bit and have more of a variety. Yeah. The next type of fundraising is relationship fundraising. This is where you're personally reaching out to specific people to invite them to partner with the ministry. This is definitely the most effective strategy when you're looking for ongoing partners, whether that's monthly or annual, and is usually done through relationships you or the organization already has with a donor.
All right, and the last type of fundraising is institutional fundraising. And we really just mentioned this to be comprehensive. I know most of you probably aren't involved in this kind of fundraising or maybe have a limited involvement with it, but we did want to mention it. So institutional fundraising is where we appeal to an organization. So a business, government, foundations, those kinds of donors. Typically, the organization sets the rules for funding here, and you try and find a match with what they want to fund. Institutional fundraising usually isn't always a sustainable source of funding. They want to find a specific project or an effort to fund for a specific time period. So they're usually not ongoing. And the best tools to find institutional fundraising or to do this well are usually just search tools or tools that can help you complete the application for the funding. So just to mention one site here, candid.org is usually a good overall source. I know they operate the GuideStar site and other complementary tools. So that might be something to look at if you're interested in going after some institutional fundraising.
All right, so as we mentioned earlier, software tools enhance our ability to connect with people. What we really need software to do for us is to simplify and even automate the regular tasks we know we need to perform. Think of it this way: software is to fundraising what a calendar is to your work schedule. Okay, it is a tool that manages the information and processes we already know we need to perform. It's not going to fundraise for us, but it's going to maximize our human abilities. So as we go through these different tools, you want to keep a couple things in mind, especially as you begin to search out tools. The first one is tool integrations. People often look for one complete system that makes everything simple. And while there are some that try to do that, most things now are a lot more specialized. Companies are realizing to do things well, they have to focus their efforts. So most of the tools are designed around just one or two key features, like donation processing or email newsletters. Maybe they also have extra things that they do, but they typically don't work quite as well as someone else. So you may want to look for another tool that does those things. And if they can integrate together, that's even better. For example, we use a scheduling app called Acuity. Acuity integrates with our Google Calendar, it integrates with Zoom, it integrates with QuickBooks, and a whole host of other tools. Each of those are specialized tools that we have separate accounts with, but because they all talk to each other, we're able to have those multiple platforms that do what they do best, but it makes our lives easier because they integrate with one another. So when you're looking at different tools, see what else it integrates with that you might be able to benefit from. The second thing you want to look at is reporting. It's important to know what options the tool has for reporting helpful information back to you. What data does it track? What data do you need it to track? How do you get the information you need quickly and easily? Reporting is important because it helps us find out our ROI. Is the work we're putting into using the software helping us have more success? Sometimes you're going to have to put in some work in the beginning to get the right data set up so you can do easy reporting. Do the work. It is worth your while because you want to be able to have that information. Otherwise, if you can't tell how much more successful you are because of using a tool, then you really have no idea if it's worth it. So do the work and check that out.
Yeah, so we've talked about how you should and maybe shouldn't use software, or your at least reasonable expectations for it. Talked about some different kinds of fundraising and how to match software with it, and then just given some overview about things you want to pay attention to with every piece of software that you use. But now let's jump into talking about specific software tools or apps or websites that you guys can use. And the first group of software tools that we want to look at are databases, also known as a CRM or a customer relationship management tool. All right, and this can range from a simple spreadsheet to something as complex as a platform that tracks names, notes, reminders, emails, and funding. They can get pretty complex. They can also be really, really simple. But remember, as we said earlier, most platforms are really only built around one or two things, one or two key features. So if you plan to use multiple tools, you'll want to find ones that integrate easily with others to make things as efficient and as effective as possible. All right, so some of the more basic CRMs that are really popular among ministry workers are TNT MPD and MPDX. All right, so we just want to kind of give a brief overview, maybe some pros and cons and some specific features of all of the tools that we're going to go through. Starting with TNT MPD, I'm sure a lot of you are probably familiar with this, maybe have even used it. So the entry-level system is called TNT Connect, and that is free. So it's a really nice thing. It connects to a wide variety of donation systems an organization may already be using. So it probably integrates with accounting or donation systems pretty well. It provides capability for budget tracking, homepage alerts for donations, and easy to read and customizable donation reports. So some of your basic features are covered there. And it can also auto send responses to partners thanking them for when a gift occurs, and it can auto generate mailing labels. So a couple of automation features there. Some of the things that might be a little more troublesome about it are the fact that it's a reporting program only. So this means that you have to have a separate donation processing system for it to link to. So another program handles the actual transaction, and TNT Connect only reports on how that's been happening. The homepage is kind of complex to navigate. It's not super intuitive, and visually it's like working with somewhat of a dated product. So it's not the easiest thing to navigate. Customer support can be not very responsive, and it's in the middle of pricing, deciding what services to offer and whatnot, software changes and things like that, which can make it difficult to see what their offerings will be like in the future. So a little bit challenging when it comes to IT. Customer support's a little cumbersome to navigate, but also has some key features as well that we mentioned. So that's TNT Connect from TNT MPD.
And it's free. So
Free.
You gotta,
yep.
you gotta balance that. Like if you want to save money, then you're gonna spend time. So just keep that in mind as we walk through these. So the next one is MPDX. MPDX is really easy to use. It has intuitive navigation. It has a lot of great integration. So it syncs with Google Contacts and Calendar, with Facebook, with MailChimp, prayerletters.com. If you're not familiar with that, that's a service where they will actually mail newsletters for you. So this can be a great service to save you time. So Jordan, if you don't mind just copying and pasting, it's just prayerletters.com. A great service I highly recommend. But you can even send a thank you note through MPDX as well. They have a mobile app. You can schedule reminders and tasks. So there's a lot of similarities with TNT, but I think the integrations are what kind of help MPDX stand out a little bit. Another nice feature, if you are fundraising with a spouse or a team, you can grant access to other people without an extra cost. So you can have multiple people on the account. A couple of cons. Again, it's basic. It doesn't generate donation reports. You have to have a separate donation platform, and their mobile app it's there, but it's not super great. It struggles to load. It crashes frequently. So again, some of the cons, but we want to at least introduce these to you guys so you can check them out and see which ones are going to work for you.
Yeah. So I think you guys will find as you look at CRMs that some of them are very specifically designed to organizations or a more complex fundraising plan. And some of them are geared to a simpler, streamlined, just sort of a single tactic fundraising plan, that kind of thing. But I would say don't necessarily rule out something that looks like it's designed for an organization or a more complex fundraising plan, because a lot of times utilizing those features and following sort of those guides are really, really helpful in any fundraising plan. So a couple more CRMs that are a little more robust we wanted to share with you guys are Donor Perfect, and Jenny's going to share with us about Little Green Light. So Donor Perfect is a CRM for fundraisers. It's clean looking, easy to use. These are some of the pros, of course. Has most of the features that you would expect from a modern CRM. Custom fields, custom reports, filters and searches are included. So really, really easy to segment donors and gifts and all kinds of stuff like that. Customer service, help and support is very helpful, easy to contact. So if you ever run into any problems, they're responsive there. It does integrate with Constant Contact, which is an email service for email communication there. Lots of other integrations are available. I know they probably have a partnership with Constant Contact because of that integration. It allows online donation processing, which is very simple, easy. Just a breeze to set up and manage monthly automated giving. So that's a nice feature to have if you're looking for something that actually can handle the transaction for you. Donor Perfect has unlimited users with the account with the ability to restrict access to different sets of information based on user profiles. So again, don't just discount something because it looks more complex or like for an organization, especially if you're leading a team or have other people involved in your fundraising efforts. Something like these more robust CRMs are a good choice. Some of the cons are pricing with a lot of these are usually higher. So pricing for Donor Perfect ranges from $89 up to $799 a month. So it's more on the enterprise level pricing. A lot of those higher prices are for extra features, online giving, a lot of more high-end things. It does have the ability to bulk email from within DonorPerfect is limited, and you're unable to use merge fields for personalization, which is a little bit of a downer, to be able to custom that communication. And then sometimes the emails from DonorPerfect don't actually send correctly. It has to be linked with Outlook to send, so it can be glitchy a little bit. So those are some of the cons for DonorPerfect, but overall a really clean, high-level quality platform to use.
Another one is Little Green Light. Little Green Light can recognize donors and bunch their donations together, which makes it really easy to track individual giving over time. Is really helpful. All the donations are in one place with names, dates, amounts associated with them in a clear, organized fashion. So that reporting feature is really, really helpful. It is a million times better than trying to do it through like looking at just bank records or something like that. Okay, so really great feature there. There is a good help system as well. So really, really good customer service. You can submit questions. There's a good database of answers to common questions. They also do free webinars. So if you're wanting to learn more about them or you have questions about different features, it's really easy to get that information. Some of the cons, it is pretty basic. There's not a lot of integrations. There is a learning curve to become acquainted with it. So it's not super intuitive. There's a handful of systems that are like that. It's not very intuitive. It takes a little bit of work on the front end, but once you get into it, it really, I think this is with a lot of software tools, really beneficial, but you're gonna have to put in the work on the front end. Another con with Little Green Light, when someone sets up a new payment through the website to be recurring on a particular day or month, you kind of got to go through some hoops to get that set up. So again, kind of setting things up is a little bit tricky. It's especially difficult that there are separate forms that they use for having donors set up their donation. So again, it's like very specific in how people actually get signed up, whether they're using a credit card or not. It's not super intuitive. If you're looking into Little Green Light, just know there's going to be a lot of setup exploration at the beginning that you're going to want to look into.
Yeah, so there's one more CRM that we want to highlight, which is geared mainly towards organizations. And as we've used different tools, we were so impressed with it that we've become a partner of theirs. And this is called Virtuous, and the Virtuous platform. I know Jordan's putting a link to this. The main difference about Virtuous is their commitment to responsive fundraising. If you are out and about in the fundraising world and reading different things, you probably have heard this term before. The Virtuous platform is really built to automate as many of the foundational fundraising behaviors as possible so that you can respond to any donor as the relationship dictates. So just kind of a high-level overview, it is a really powerful, robust, has all of the feature sets that you could imagine, different modules and things that you can utilize or not utilize. But the real power to it, at least from my opinion, is the ability to set up those automations and really set the principles to your fundraising plan and then allow the Virtuous platform just to sort of handle it and execute it. It is very clean and easy to use, very intuitive. So just discovering features and figuring out how to do things on it is not hard at all. So getting into some of the most powerful features are the ability to easily automate gift responses. You can create email communication directly in the platform based on custom fields. So again, you might not use this feature a lot, but if you figure out how to do it, for example, you can set up birthday reminders that automatically just send to people on their birthday whenever that happens, or any custom field that you would want to use, you can send communication based on those custom fields. It also has the ability to see everything about your donors within the platform. Social behavior can be seen through Virtuous. How they even navigate your website can be seen in the Virtuous platform, so really powerful there. And I think, the real benefit to it is, from our experience, Virtuous is really able to handle the workload that we typically see organizations have an entire staff person handle, and still trying to figure out how to integrate it and talk with everything. So we highly recommend Virtuous, even for small level organizations. Their package for mid-sized organizations is around $350 a month. That includes the automated emails. You can add other things like online giving as well for extra cost. Each package comes with a personal success coach to get you started, which is a really big asset. As any of you know, if you tried to become familiar with the CRM on your own, it's really nice to have somebody from the organization really kind of walk you through getting set up and comfortable with it. So if you're leading a team or if you run an organization, we highly recommend Virtuous as a good CRM to build out your entire fundraising plan for responsive fundraising.
All right, next we're going to look at a couple of tools that accept donations that can handle transactions. The first one we recommend looking at is Tithely. It's kind of geared for churches and fellowships and is really good, especially during COVID when you need an online giving platform. Really, really helpful. It makes giving so easy. Think of it as the perfect replacement for PayPal. So definitely check out Tithely. Again, it was built with a mobile church generation in mind. There are several ways for your partners to give. There's one-step donation forms. You can do, give through texting. There's giving apps. So for especially the millennial generation, for you being overseas, it's very, very, very easy for people to give to you, which is pretty important. It also gives in-depth reports on a simple to use dashboard, and it allows for event registration and payment as well if you are having events. So offers a lot of great things. The second one we want to highlight is Mission Quest. If you don't have a sending organization, this could be a good option for you as well. It addresses the challenges you may be facing of how to accept donations and the bureaucracy that can come when you're working under an agency. It was built for ministry workers by ministry workers. So it's someone who specifically for those workers is thinking through, okay, what did I want in a system? Let's create that for you. It provides a dependable and trustworthy home office that processes your donations. They will answer all of your donors' questions and requests on your behalf. They provide a beautiful ministry page, a specific, personalized, unique URL with the ability to customize the description of that page. So that's also just a really great feature. They also provide a secure online donor management software with 24/7 access available to you. So with this system, you can log in to a secure account. You can track your funds and donations in real time. So it's kept up to date really well. Sometimes there are certain systems where it's like a month, and then you get your report. This you can go in and check up to date, up to the hour, like, okay, what's happening? You can get your updated donor list, generate reports, create budgets, and you get an immediate email notification when you receive a new donation. So their reporting time and turnaround is really quick.
Yeah. So I've seen a few questions come in. Just want to encourage you guys to throw those in the Q&A box. And we want to make sure we'll answer those at the end. But thank you guys for your questions. Keep them coming, and we'll make sure to get to them at the end. Now we want to talk about some just evergreen communication tools, just platforms that you might use to always stay in contact with your donors. And the first one we're going to mention is MailChimp. It's one of the most popular email services out there. It is fairly affordable, has a free version. So that's key. You can get in there and try it and see if it works for you or not. It takes a little bit of time to get set up, but once you get a handle on it, it's really incredibly easy to use. It's easy to understand the reporting of data and things like that. So I think one of the things that I find with evergreen communication platforms are, just your pay-to-play features, your basic stuff is there. But as you start communicating a lot, you realize just how important things like list management is. Knowing what you've sent to who, and an individual being on multiple lists. Also integrations. I know communication always involves other pieces of information, other data, other processes. So being able to integrate your communication platform with other things is key. And MailChimp is really, really good about those kinds of things. So free version, really affordable. Key features like list management and integrations are really, really popular. MailChimp's a good overall email service out there.
We also want to highlight Epistle. So Epistle is the company that is offering the free one-year subscription to one of you lucky winners today. We're excited to give that to you guys. I use Epistle. I really like it. So what it is it's kind of a blend between social media and a newsletter, an email newsletter. So it's similar to, you go on, you put a picture, a caption, a post. It's very, very simple. So it's kind of taking advantage of that quick post culture, but then it stores it and then sends them out all together in an email newsletter. And then your partner or newsletter subscriber can choose if they want to get it every day, if they want to get it once a week or once a month. It's so if you go on, click that link, there's a 14-day free trial, and then it's only $9 a month after that. It integrates with Instagram as well. So if you're using Instagram, you're just posting like normal, and then it's just funneling into a newsletter. So it's great because it kind of maximizes your time a bit in that sense. I don't have an Instagram account that's separate from ministry, so I don't have mine integrated because I don't want, all of that email to everyone. But it's still really simple to use, even if you don't have it synced. It's pretty basic. It's only been around for about 4 years. So there's some things that seem like it should be able to do. For example, if I want to change someone's email address, I can't do that. I have to remove them from the list and then re-add them to the list. So there's a couple things like that that aren't super great, but they're continuing to improve every year. 4 years might seem like a long time, but in the tech world, that's still a baby product. And so they're adding new features, but check them out. Again, it's very affordable. It's very quick. It's very easy. And I think from a reader's perspective as well, it's really easy to kind of get those highlights. So it's not your traditional newsletter, like your MailChimp, might be that kind of template with columns and prayer requests. But personally, as a millennial and, having a lot of my contacts being millennials, I think it's a really great option. So check that out.
Yeah, Frankie, who developed that tool, they've been in ministry in the past. I know they're currently stateside working, but they're planning on going back to the field in ministry here in the next 2 or 3 years. So they know exactly what it's like to be in your shoes and trying to communicate with partners. So, all right, another tool that we love and want to make sure to highlight is something called SlideDial. SlideDial is an app that allows you to call a number and just leave a voicemail. It's a direct to voicemail kind of app. It's effective because it still allows you to leave that personal touch, but it's incredibly efficient because you can do several calls back to back. So I really like this tool when I need to really send out a lot of personal messages, but I really don't have the time to get caught up in conversations or anything like that. I can really just leave a personal touch and go through dozens of these in an afternoon. SlideDial is perfect for that. You can also do group messaging where it sends out a voicemail to several people at once. It is incredibly affordable, can save you a lot of time, less than $3 a month. So almost nothing, or 10 cents per message. I know there's a couple of different payment plans there. And you also have the option to send one pre-recorded message to 10 numbers at once. So it does have that group messaging feature as well. I know Jenny can probably speak to this a little bit better, but I know a lot of time coaching introverts, people who maybe are really hesitant to get on the phone with a donor. And because of that, that actually keeps them from just moving forward and picking up the phone. SlideDial can be a great sort of introduction to just starting to talk with donors and leaving voicemails. So definitely check out SlideDial if that sounds like something that could be helpful for you.
Yeah,
all right.
I love SlideDial. Yep.
Yeah.
So I just want to add, it's very, very, very affordable. So yeah, like Kiley said, if you have phone anxiety, and that's keeping you from making those calls, the reality is phone calls aren't actually super effective for getting a hold of people, but they're really effective at getting people's attention. So I know so many people are like, oh, I'll just email or text or try all these other things. Those things are great. But a follow-up phone call to start with makes a huge difference because it really shows that you are taking time to connect with them and that you're connecting personally, right? Yeah. That really stands out. So make the calls. If you're struggling, use SlideDial. We absolutely love it. And we have a ton of people who use it and rave about it.
Yep, good stuff. All right, so the last type of software that we wanted to touch on has to do with measuring impact. And we don't need to be measuring dollars as much as partnership. In other words, how effectively are your partners taking ownership of the work that you're doing together? And these are things such as key non-cash indicators like retention and buy-in, those kinds of things. And how do you measure the overall long-term health of your partnership base? So we want to have at least a plan, if not a specific software tool, but at least a plan for measuring impact, because you can't separate impact from fundraising. Right? This isn't just about the tactics of fundraising and just asking people. That stuff is important, absolutely. But in order to build long-term partnership, you need to be able to communicate to your partners what is God calling us to do together and how you can help them take ownership of that. So you really want to be able to measure and report these 4 key questions. What problem are we trying to solve? How are we solving that problem? How are we measuring the success of our solution? And then how can we package this success so that donors can understand and take ownership of it? All right, that's just kind of a short, quick and dirty breakdown of how we need to be communicating impact to donors. So good fundraising means that you complete the cycle. You invite partners to join you in having impact, you create and measure the impact, and then you communicate this impact back to partners. All right, it's not just that initial ask. And this doesn't really have to require a complex piece of software, but it is absolutely essential. Even if you manage this from a spreadsheet or a document, you really want to define and measure your impact. All right. For more complex situations, and these are very much enterprise level tools, a platform like Impact Cloud from sopact.com can really help detail and manage these kinds of things. Again, I understand for individual fundraisers, this probably isn't going to apply. You really just want to kind of work this out through a messaging doc or maybe keep a track of spreadsheets so you can track progress. But if you are leading a team or dealing with an organization, you want to be able to detail things like your theory of change, your key measurables, more and more with responsive fundraising and allowing donors to be involved in the impact, even how your impact aligns with the values of your donors. So all in all, we really just want to call attention to the idea of measuring your impact and not just managing your fundraising tactically, but really managing your partnership and how well you are at bringing people into owning what God's calling you guys to do together. So at least have a plan for measuring impact. And if you are dealing with a more complex situation, you can check out something like Impact Cloud, SOPACT, or something else along those lines.
We also want to call out that a lot of ministry workers get a bad rap for being cheap, for not wanting to pay for things, for wanting everything free. And while we can appreciate asking the question, is it worth it? Is it worth the funding? We want to make sure you're looking at the bigger picture, because we're not just the money you're putting in. We severely underestimate the time that we put into things. So how much time are you putting into something for it not to work? Okay, that is a waste. And the reality is that is also not good stewardship. So I really want to encourage you guys, change your mindset around paying for quality services, because a quality service can actually save you so much time in the long run. You know, if you look back over the last year, how much funding has been lost and how much of that was actually preventable if you would have maintained proper communication with partners. A lot of these tools that we've talked about can help with that. You know, you're getting a message right away when there's a new donor or partner, so you can respond right away or set up an automated message that thanks them. One of the things I love about Virtuous is you can set things like on their 10-year anniversary of being a partner, they're going to get an email or a card or something like that. You know, or you can set, hey, when this person hits the $1,000 or $10,000 mark in giving, then we're automatically going to send them an email, saying thank you. So those kind of automations that pay attention to the relationship that you have with people make a huge difference. So don't look at a cost and immediately go, oh gosh, that's too much. Think about, okay, but what are you already paying? What is it already costing you to not have some sort of tool that actually maximizes your efforts? Because if you're losing partners, if you do not have regular communication with them, that is not being a good steward of the relationships the Father has given you. So what do you need to do to be a better steward? So let's shift away from this kind of scarcity mentality, or seeing stewardship as only, oh, should I pay for this? You know, is this worth it? Is this okay for me to do? And look at the broader picture. Does this keep partners long term? Which, guess what happens when you keep partners long term? Your ministry has more sustainability as well. You're not having to leave the field, you know, and return and take time off because you have to fundraise. What would that be worth to you to not have to do that? What would it be worth to be able to focus on the ministry of fundraising and the ministry that's there in front of you on the field, and not have to take time away because of lack of funding? I'm guessing it's probably worth a good bit. And when Kiley and I were thinking through this webinar, he said something that really impacted me. And he said, you know, so often it's easy for us to see business and think of our investment like, oh, okay, if there's a training or a certification, you know, or some sort of conference, it makes sense for me to pay money to do that because my business is going to profit. Your ministry should be treated the same way. It's not just this personal thing that you're doing, you know, because the Father called you. It's the Father's work. It's bigger than that. And so see that as, am I getting a profit? You know, is the good news being shared? Are partners being blessed because of our relationship? You know, invest in that because it's worth it. The people are worth it. The ministry is worth it. It's not about your worth, right? It's about the work. And so keep that in perspective.
Yeah, good thoughts. All right, real quickly before we take some questions, we wanted just to touch on security just for a minute. I know a lot of times when we talk about different tools, we get a lot of questions about security and different situations. Jordan's going to post a link to a blog post on our site that basically just kind of summarizes what I'm going to share. So you can have it there and go to that blog post whenever and reference it. But we do want to say above all that you should check with your organization or supervisor if you have questions around security. Whatever your specific situation is and how secure and how you need to share information, ultimately, they're going to be the ones that can provide the best insight for you. So I've got about 6 tips here that Jordan's put together for us. But ultimately refer to your organization, your supervisor, for what you probably should and shouldn't use. But some of our best practices are to always use a VPN if you need to communicate securely. A VPN, a virtual private networks, they're a way of masking where you are in the world. NordVPN is a good choice. If you're tech savvy enough, then you can roll your own using Streisand through GitHub. If you have no idea what that is, then you don't need to use it. If you do, then you're set. But recommend using a VPN always. For secure email, we recommend LavaBit. You can find them on the web. This is a great secure email provider. This is the provider that Edward Snowden used to circumvent the NSA in 2013. So they're on top of their game. Thirdly, use a password manager so you can have a very complex passwords without having to remember them. 1Password is great. I don't know, Jordan could answer this, but I imagine weak passwords are one of the weakest links in just overall security. So use 1Password, have a single very complex password that you have to remember, and then everything else gets stored in vaults in 1Password. So highly recommend that. Use end-to-end encryption with messaging service if you have to use a messaging service. Signal is currently considered best practice. So it's a good option. Always use 2FA or two-factor authentication for all of your logins. Don't use SMS. SMS for two-factor authentication is insecure. It can be compromised on the phone. For 2FA, Google Authenticator is best. It's just a simple app on your mobile device, and then it provides that second level of security for logging into secure things. So always use two-factor authentication. And finally, don't ever use the cloud for storage if it's something sensitive. Always use local drives. We recommend some form of encryption. But if you put it on the cloud, then just consider it public. So if it has to be sensitive, then don't ever store it in the cloud. So those are just some high-level tips about security. Again, we recommend checking with your supervisor or organization about what they would prefer you do or don't, but those are just some overall best practices about staying secure and using things online.
Perfect. All right. Jordan, anything to add to that before we jump into Q&A?
Nope. Good to go.
Okay. All right. So we're going to take some time to answer questions that you guys have. So if you haven't already, go ahead and click that Q&A button and drop your questions in there. And Jordan, what questions have come through so far?
We had a question about Blackbaud to start with. Specifically Madison asked, the organization pays for the admin fee, and it seems like it's more geared towards an org or a company instead of individuals, and just trying to get to know it. So we have a lot of organizations that use Blackbaud. We typically recommend Virtuous over Blackbaud just because it has a lot of the same features that Blackbaud does, but it's a little bit cheaper and it's a little bit better experience. I don't know, Kiley, if you want to touch on that anymore, but we've had quite a number of organizations that have moved over from Blackbaud to Virtuous and just sing its praises. So typically we recommend that. It's not that Blackbaud's a bad tool, it's just more corporate driven, and it's for an organization that handles several $100 million in fundraising rather than smaller teams. So Kiley, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing, it's easy to sit down and compare things side by side about features and all that stuff. But honestly, when we actually get into working with clients, what they use is much more limited in just how comfortable they are with the tool. So, I mean, you could have feature list pages long and they think that that's great, so I need to go with that. But then they get in there and don't really know how to use them. And I think that's where Virtuous really wins here. So in my experience, I would say Blackbaud is a little more technical and cumbersome to use, more complex, whereas a tool more like Virtuous is streamlined, helps you focus on the biggest things first, has the ability to go a little more in depth, but it really keeps the main thing as the main thing more easily with its interface. So yeah, I'd agree.
And Madison followed up with a question, is it worth it as an individual for me to take the time to get to know Blackbaud? That kind of depends. I mean, we typically take the approach with software of try things for a little while and see how it works. The only reason I would say that you definitely should work with Blackbaud is if your organization is requiring it or expecting it. If they expect you to work within Blackbaud, then you should get to know it and you should get familiar with it. It's not that it's an awful tool. It's just that there are better tools out there. So if they're requiring it, then you should do it. But if they're not requiring it, there are better tools out there like Virtuous that might be more worth your time. But at the end of the day, it's not the end of the world to spend a little bit of time getting to know a software so that once you start to use another software, you really notice the features that are better. So not the end of the world to get to know it, but still would recommend Virtuous.
Yep.
All right, next question. As an organization, we've had a few recommendations on Salesforce. Daniel asked this question. Salesforce is ultimately considered the gold standard in CRM world. It's more geared towards corporations. It's more geared towards incredibly large, complex entities. And so, you can use it. It definitely has incredible tools, but again, it's more geared towards a sales funnel. You can ultimately think of your donor experience as a sales funnel if you want, but it's not quite the same. And a lot of the tools that a lot of these things that we recommended are a little bit more tailored towards an individual who's fundraising for partners. So it's not that you can't use it. I know I've definitely used it in the past, but I do know that it's more geared towards large organizations. And kind of like Blackbaud, it is definitely built for teams 50, 100, 200 strong that are all working together. And it's not that the other CRM tools can't do that. It's just that they're more built for that. So over time, if your organization does get very large and they choose to go towards Salesforce, I don't think there's anything wrong with using it. I just think there's better tools out there as an individual or even as a few people fundraising. So,
yep, yeah, for sure.
Let's see. Someone asked again another question on Salesforce for Spanish platform. Yeah, I mean, I guess Salesforce is going to be again a very, very large organization, so they are going to have other features like Spanish in different languages. So I guess that is something to keep in mind. Epistle, there's a question again from Madison. Is it only via email or do they have an app or Instagram? I think they have some form of an app. It might just be a web-based app. And you can use it on Instagram. I looked it up on there, how Epistle works. who here has used, Jenny, have you used Epistle? Is it mostly meant for email or is it meant for Instagram?
Yeah, it's mostly meant for email.
Okay.
So I think the idea is that Instagram pushes through the email.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Next question was around MailChimp as a communication tool. Partners, does it integrate with other CRMs? So MailChimp is just another email tool that allows you to do mass email communication. Part of the reason you need to use a tool like MailChimp is because doing mass email is restricted with certain spam laws worldwide. And so a tool like MailChimp, recycles mail servers and keeps standards on their mail servers depending on how you send. So for example, if you've ever tried to send a few thousand emails via Gmail, you'll notice it blocks you pretty quickly. So you have to use a tool like MailChimp at some point in order to manage communication. It also can manage your HTML emails a lot more efficiently and make them look a little more professional. It doesn't mean it's the only tool to use. It's just the one we recommend. If you're sending anywhere less than 500,000 emails, MailChimp's a great tool. Eventually, you get to a point pricing-wise where it gets really expensive. And there are other options out there that we can discuss at another point. But MailChimp is a great tool, and part of what's great about it is it literally integrates with just about everything. It doesn't mean that it can integrate instantly within the settings of, say, your CRM or some random tool. But what's cool about MailChimp is it has a very, very open API. API stands for Application Protocol Interface, and that allows external developers to sort of interact with a tool like MailChimp very efficiently and effectively. So MailChimp has always kept a very open API. And so a lot of other companies such as Squarespace or Typeform or a lot of other common tools you'll use, if you go into the settings, you'll notice there's a MailChimp option that allows you to automatically integrate with that, right? So for example, if you use Typeform to collect like form responses, it can automatically put them in a MailChimp list. But the other cool thing is Zapier is a cool tool that will allow you to integrate with just about any tool that allows MailChimp to interact with it. So if you collect an email via MailChimp or you send via MailChimp, then you can automatically push it out to other tools, again, because of their open API stuff. Let's see, next question. Anyone else wanted to chat about MailChimp and integrations there?
No, sounds good to me.
Just highlighting with MailChimp, one of the things I like about it is the reporting is also really intuitive. It's that piece I know a lot of people that we work with have enjoyed. It's like, okay, it's not like super complex where you got to go in and, and be super tech savvy to figure it out. You can quickly see, okay, who is who's opening, who's clicking through, that kind of stuff is really simple. So it's a great tool.
Brian asked, does SlideDial send a voicemail or a text message? He was specifically asking around like mass messaging people. SlideDial is specifically a tool built to allow you to sort of skip the ringing associated with a phone call. So instead of it ringing and then going to voicemail, it just goes right to voicemail. It's not really built for text messaging. It's just a tool that allows you to efficiently leave voicemails. Jenny, did you want to discuss that at all?
Yeah, it's also, you can do mass messages. Kiley, was it 10 at a time or something like that? So if you wanted to like send like Happy Thanksgiving or Merry Christmas or, like something that you're going to be sending to a lot of people, doing that through SlideDial rather than just a mass email really stands out because it just feels so much more personal. So that's another great option with them is to just say, okay, hey, for these 10 or these 20, these 30 people, let's shoot this quick voicemail. Beth has used SlideDial for a while and she loves it. So we've got lots of people who have used it. I
guess I was wrong there, Brian. I guess it does do some mass messages. Very good to know. Jenny, what's the max on those? Is it only 10 or can you do more than that?
I think the 10 is a SlideDial feature for like that account, but they have another product called Sly Broadcast, if I'm not mistaken. And I think that has we're talking thousands of people. It might have some pretty high-end limitations. Now, I think that's a different payment plan. So maybe that's where the 10 cent per message delivered comes in, if I'm not mistaken. But
looks like Sly Broadcasts. Yeah, you can do like 13,000 deliveries. So
yeah. So you can record a message
nice.
And then punch in, the numbers and it just blast it.
Yep.
Cool. But who doesn't love, even like with texting, if you just do a voice memo, instead of sending a text, it's just great to hear that live voice.
Real quick, cool. David's asking if SlideDial only work with the U.S. phone number. I don't believe so. The way it works is, I think they have international capabilities where you can type in any numbers and it would
Sure.
send to those. But let me look into
Jordan
that.
will
real
look
quick,
at that.
David. Yeah. Okay. While he's doing that, let's see. Jean Paul asked, "Do you know another good software for mass text messaging?" It's been a while since I've used anything like that. Jenny, do you know of anything?
Yes, 1 second.
Okay.
That would be text. It's a really good one. It allows you to create a visual build of sort of how a text message flows. So
Okay.
let me paste it in here.
Text it
And
down. Yeah.
what that allows you to do is it basically allows you to like send out mass messages. And then if someone responds, it automatically allows you to visually create the flow of like whether they answered yes or no. And it was actually originally built for nonprofits. It's a really cool company.
Nice.
That's a great tool for that.
Great. We've got just a couple minutes left, so I want to respect your guys' time. And I'd love to hear from you in the chat. What is something that we've discussed, you've heard, maybe even the fathers brought to mind, that's been helpful for you during this webinar? So go ahead and share that information with us. Again, like we shared at the beginning, we want to thank Epistle, the software tool for communicating with partners, who's generously offered to give a single 1-year subscription to their product for one of you in attendance today. We'll select one of your names at random and notify the winner by email. We are also really passionate about helping you build and track and keep a strong partnership team, and we'd love the opportunity to work with you. So click on the link in the chat that's coming soon to learn more about who Tailored is, what we do, and reach out if you're interested in learning more about a coaching relationship. So thank you guys so much for being with us. It's been great to be with you. We hope you're walking away with some valuable tips on how to maximize your fundraising efforts through software tools. And please join us again for next month's free webinar. We are going to be looking at how to develop your newsletter readership. So we'll put a link to our webinars as well. Every single month, we're providing webinars for free to just resource you guys and encourage you as much as possible in your partnership development journey. We're going to stay on and continue to answer a few more questions that have come through. But for those of you who need to go, thank you so much for joining us. Have a great day.
Excellent.
All right, what else we got?
Yeah, real quick, just going back to Slido, Madison asked about what types of things would you be communicating to individuals or mass on Slido? And we've kind of already mentioned a few of these. I think the main way we recommend using it is just to send individual personalized messages. But as Jordan mentioned, you can skip the ringing, so you can send a lot of those efficiently kind of in one setting. And that personal touch to be able for them to hear your live voice really grabs their attention and leaves a lasting impression, a lot more than just a text or certainly an email, that kind of thing. So it may be that the mass slide out feature you might just use for like specific updates or thank yous, or if you've hit, specific milestones that you would share with everybody. Otherwise, most of the use of Slido that we've seen has been on just sending those personal voice messages efficiently. So great question though, Madison.
Yeah, looks like a lot of you are excited to look into SlideDial and the prayerletters.com as well. So a few of you have mentioned that, so that's good.
Yeah.
All right, any other questions, Jordan?
No, it looks like they're all answered. Should be good to go.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you guys. Good to see your names month after month being with us, and we hope to see you next month as well. Take care, stay safe, wear a mask.
Thanks, guys.